That's Micah's chore. He takes care of the meat birds. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the homestead. This video has been on my mind to make for a few weeks. I meant to put it out in October, but I just didn't. I try to make weekly videos, but then I just don't have time. I don't know. My own fault. I make myself too busy, I guess. But anyway, so today I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about kind of like a revamp of the first video I posted about how to get started with goats. But this time I'm going to share a few years in what I wish we would have done differently. I'm happy with, and hopefully you guys can learn something from it. But first, chores got to be done. Animals got to be fed. Goats got to be milked. Goodness, seriously? So normally they love, absolutely love the pellets. Someone dropped some of the dog food in the bin, and now like every once in a while they'll get like a chunk of dog food in it, and they're super grossed out by it. And then so now they're not exactly happy about having to get on the milk stand. And we got this really rich alfalfa hay that they're just in love with. It's like pure alfalfa, and they devour that stuff. How about you just go straight in? Quit stopping for snacks. Piper, come on. Come on. Come on. Hazel. So, I'm filling chicken water right now, but when we started with goats, we had a existing barn on the property. It wasn't a huge barn, and it wasn't a fancy barn. It was dilapidated, and it had a bunch of holes in it. It was leaky, and we did have to put a new roof on. But, so the interior, it was fine. We just needed to add some walls. So the farm where I got my first few goats from, I asked her for her opinion on how big the stalls should be and all that. So this barn is it's like, I think it's 17 by 20 or 17 by 19, something like that. It's an old barn. Like it used to be a garage. They made this the same time they made the house. So anyway, so we did that. We opened up the back. I don't know if you can see that, but we opened up the back so the goats could freely go in and out of their fenced-in pasture. I love that feature. I don't have to go let them out in the morning. I don't have to lock them up at night. They do their thing. They go in and out as they want, and it's perfect for the winter and rainy days, because as soon as the weather clears up, they don't have to wait for me to go outside. So I really like this idea. I really like this setup. I wouldn't change that. Also, the fencing, it is just about 5 feet all around. I wouldn't change that. I'm glad we went that high. I'm glad we put these fence boards along the outside of the fence so that they can't climb it. We've never had a goat escape. The saying goes, if a fence can't hold water, it won't hold a goat. Well, we've never had a goat escape unless someone left the gates open. Toys. This was a porch that was on our house when we first moved here, and we just had a couple of guys help Jake, and they carried it over here. Those are things that I'm glad we did. but I wish we would have gone bigger. Like, that's probably my only regret now, looking back. At the time, our mindset was also different. We didn't think about our needs as much. It was for the milk right from the start, but it wasn't like, I don't know, it wasn't our mindset wasn't like self-sustainable, right? It was a hobby, and it'll provide us with milk. Now, our herd has grown from 3 to 9 goats. 2 of those are bucks, and we will be getting rid of them after we're done breeding this year, so that we have a summer off without having to feed the bucks, and then we'll just get a new buck in the fall. Because our plan is to retain some of the doelings from our Nubian, if she has doelings. Anyway, side note. So, what I regret with this fencing. This is welded wire. It's 5 feet high, and these things, they are 2x4. They're great. No one can stick their head out. Nobody can escape. No babies can hop through, but it's welded wire. So we've had to repair some patches along that fence line there. That's the buck pen. So we've had to repair some of the fencing along there because they rub themselves along it. I don't know if you saw that, and over here, it bows out a lot. Okay. So I wish we would have changed that fencing. I wish we would have done something different, like a woven wire rather than a welded wire. The welded wire is cheaper, and that is why we went with it. We didn't see the need to have the more expensive wire. We're just like, oh, it's just gonna hold a couple of goats. But we didn't think about the rubbing of the fence. Like, they constantly rub themselves along the fence to scratch themselves. And so what I wish we would have done in that pasture there, we did it in the new pasture that we just put, or that we just fenced off this past summer. So this past summer, we fenced this area off, and right now it's empty, but it's because the weather's bad. I'm not sure if it's gonna rain again, so I don't want to have to run out here and let anyone in the barn. But this pasture is much bigger than the other one, and this is really nice. I let them in here and they get their full of grass, or fill of grass. But we also added a feature here, barbed wire. Now you could do a hot wire, or you could do a barbed wire. And again, we chose to do the barbed wire because we didn't want to bring hydro out here. We didn't want to have to worry about, you know, if it was electrified or not, if it was solar powered, whatever. Barbed wire, it's like an off-grid type thing. I just feel like if you have those types of fencing, you're a lot more secure if the power goes out. We are in an open field. We actually get a lot of power outages during the winter and in the spring, fall, all the windy seasons. So like over half the year, we have to worry about power outages because of the wind. So the barbed wire is a really good feature. We noticed the goats maybe try it once where they'll kind of lean into it and then they get a little poke and then they're like, not trying that again. So I definitely recommend putting the barbed wire on the inside of the fencing along the bottom, just so that they can't rub themselves along the fence. This fence we didn't do quite as high, only because the roll of fencing only comes in 4-foot heights. They don't have 5-foot height, but we do have a little bit of extra space here. If we have to add some more fencing ever, we will. But as of right now, it's fine. These squares are also bigger. They're 4x4 instead of 2x4. And it's fine. No one's escaped yet. But we do notice one of our doelings, who's still a little bit smaller, she sticks her head right through here and eats from the grass on this side. Because, you know, the grass is always greener on the other side. But it's actually kind of a nice thing that she does because we don't have to weed whack along the fence line. Another thing that we established right away when we got our goats was a local hay supplier. And we have a guy right close to us. He's just a hop, skip, and a jump down the road, and he raises cattle, and he actually does small bales just for us and a few other hobbyists. And it's really great because it is really good hay. Like I mentioned before, it's almost pure alfalfa, and our goats love it. And that's the kind of hay you need if you want dairy goats. You need them to have alfalfa. They need those extra calories that only the alfalfa can give. I know there's some people who can raise their own alfalfa, which is great. Unfortunately, we are on a small scale, 1 acre. We can't grow that, so we do have to outsource it. So really, when you're thinking about self-sufficiency, self-sustainability on a small scale, you can be somewhat self-sustainable and self-sufficient. I think mainly in growing of your vegetables in a garden, because that's basically where we can be 100% self-sustainable in. But raising goats anyway, any kind of dairy animal, you're gonna need to source out some hay. So it's nice to have a community that you can kind of lean back on and rely on, somebody who you can build a relationship with and trust that they're giving you good quality hay. You got hay up your nose. Hey girls. That's my finger. Something I wasn't prepared for when I got goats was medical emergencies. And it happens with goats. We had, if you look at my previous videos, there's a few times where we had some sick goats. One was pregtox or ketosis shortly after she kidded. And another one, she was sick because of just being lonely. It was actually the first goat we ever got, and she was super lonely. So we actually ended up getting another baby earlier than what we had intended, just because she was depressed and she was towering in a corner. She wasn't eating, she wasn't drinking. So if you're going to start with goats, you make sure you have at least 2. If you're going to get Nigerian dwarf goats and you want milk, just to give you an idea of what 3 Nigerian dwarfs will give you in a full day, it's about 1.5 liters. Slightly more, obviously depending on their age and genetics, but mine right now, they'll give me about 1.5 liters total in a day, possibly 2 liters when they're at peak production. But right now they're kind of slowing down. I'll be drying them off next month. So we're in November. It's November 1st. This was supposed to go out in October, but anyway, November 1st. So next month, at the end of December, I will be drying them off and preparing for the kidding season. This is the little lady that was sick when we first got her, but she is now healthy and the best milker. She did actually suffer from a miscarriage earlier this year, so this year we didn't milk her. I didn't breed her. I tried breeding her back towards the end of the season, but I think she had stopped cycling already because it was late in the season. I was hoping for fall kidding, but it didn't work out. And yeah, so she didn't give us any milk this year, which was quite disappointing because last year she was one of the best, or she was the best producer. So if you're going to get started with goats, make sure you have done your research on what breed you want. If you want them for milk, a Nigerian dwarf is an excellent dairy goat. They are mini though, so yes, they eat less, but they also produce less. The reason why we ventured off into getting a Nubian is because, well, we have 5 kids. I make soap and I want to make cheeses. I want to do all the things, but because they don't produce that much milk, I can't. So we ventured into Nubians, and I'm pretty excited about her kidding as well. She'll be having babies, Lord willing, at the end of January, early February. Hopefully she will provide us with more milk than the others. We also got a mini Nubian. She's still too young to be bred, but we'll be breeding her in December. This is our buck pen. We built this shortly after we got started with goats because we knew we needed a buck. We boarded a buck the first year, which was fine, but because we didn't have separate housing, he lived in the barn and the barn stunk. But we built the buck pen pretty much the same way as we built the doe's pen. This shed was also there when we moved in, and that is where the bucks sleep. And yes, they share a fence line, but there's chicken wire and the other welded wire there so that they don't breed through the fence. Because apparently it can happen. It's not happened to us, but I've heard stories, I've watched YouTube channels that have had that happen. But so ultimately, if you're gonna get started with goats, do your research beforehand, but don't overthink it. God created these animals to be in nature, right? Like, they're not dumb. They have instincts. They're stubborn, but they have instincts. They'll eat what's good. They'll kind of spit at what's not. Don't overthink it. Goats are, in my opinion, they're actually pretty easy as long as they're not sick. We haven't had that much health issues. We've had them for 3 years and they're not always sick. We've had two times where they've been sick, and my sister has goats. She actually has the baby goats from our first kidding season, and she had an accidental breeding happen a little bit too early, and her doeling did need help with birthing, but that was it. Like, after that kid that was stuck, we got that out and she was good to go. The babies are all healthy and she's fine too. So again, with the birth as well, Nigerian dwarfs are excellent birthers, and a majority of the time they don't need assistance. And the rule of thumb is they're supposed to be 1 year old when they deliver. So like my baby goats, they were born at the end of April, early May. I'm waiting until December and January to breed them, just so that they are over a year when they have their babies. So if you do decide you want to keep a buck, make sure you have him separated, or else you're going to have a lot of breeding happening that you don't necessarily want to have. It's our first year, we weren't sure when they were bred because I wasn't sure of how to tell when they were in heat. I wasn't sure how to tell when they were bred. All those different things I didn't know. So we just had the buck running with them. A, we didn't have a spot for him, and B, I just didn't know. And I just figured, well, nature's gonna do what nature's gonna do. So the second year and now the third year, we are aware of the heat cycles, and when they go into heat, we pay attention to their behavior, and therefore we can track when they are going to kid, which is super important, especially if they are first time mamas, because usually those are the ones that are gonna need assistance if someone's gonna need assistance. So then if you're wondering what goats eat, it's hay. I did touch on that a little bit, but also on the milk stand we give treats. We buy a pellet. You can do loose grains, but we do a pellet because it is cheaper for us to do that. Because we have such a small herd in comparison to some of the other people, we can't get bulk prices. If we could, I don't know, we don't have anywhere to store it. So that is why we do the pellets, and we give them a scoop, about a cup, maybe a little bit more, on the milk stand while we milk, in the morning and in the evening. And then we give them loose minerals. So the loose minerals, this is where I keep them. These are actually recycling bins. So this is Redmond's Real Salt. If you can't have Redmond's Real Salt, go to Costco, get yourself the Kirkland's Himalayan Sea Salt. Next, we have these loose minerals. These are goat minerals. And then we also have kelp. It's So they have free choice and they got poop in there. Ladies, why do you do that? Why do you put poop in everything? And when they have a case of runny stools or scours, diarrhea, whatever you want to call it, I always put, because I have a 4th tray in there, I always put baking soda in there and free choice, and it usually clears it up. But I don't keep that free choice all the time. It's not an essential nutrient or mineral that they need. Can I have my shirt back? Coco, thank you. Look at that smile. She's gonna show her teeth in a minute. And when the ladies are in milk, I sprinkle just a tiny bit of this BioLac on there. It is a mineral. It's like a fermented thing. It helps with lactation. I get all these minerals and things from actually the goat farmer that I got my goats from. She orders it from their local feed store. She orders it in bulk, and then she just orders a little extra for me, and then I grab it from her place. So it's really nice to have connections in a goat community. If you are getting started with goats, especially if you're in Ontario, Canada, or at least Southern Ontario where we are, there isn't a whole lot of information out there for us. Vets don't really know that much in regards to helping them. So your best bet is to have a connection with a goat farmer. Goats, they say, are a finicky creature. I would agree. If they're sick, it's a lot harder to help them when they're sick because their size and their sensitive rumens. So making a connection with a goat farmer, especially if you're trying to do things naturally, is really important. They've learned tips and tricks along the way, and majority of them will be helpful if you ask, and they'll be more than happy to share anything that they've learned. So this is the main pasture attached to the barn, and then there's my garden. That gate and that gate, they are far off. We do plan to put a fence there so the goats don't always go in there when we're trying to lead them in there. And eventually we'll be putting a shelter in there so that we can have anyone who's not in milk in there full time. On a small scale, goats are probably your best bet for dairy, and Nigerian dwarf goats can sometimes be classified as a pet. So some city bylaws will actually allow you to keep Nigerian dwarf because they are a dwarf goat. They're a miniature breed, so they could qualify as a pet. So obviously you got to check with your bylaw officers or your town hall, whatever you have, if you live in town. But if you're in a rural setting, even if you're not on a large scale, Nigerian dwarfs are great for small scale. Anyway, enough of me yammering. If you guys have any more questions or any requests, leave them in the comments below. I do check my comments. My husband checks my comments, and he lets me know when there is something, and I will answer them. If not in a video, I will reply back in the comment section. Yeah, so if there's anything you guys would like to know about our homestead or about goats, anything really, leave it in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to reply. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you guys learned something from this video. Please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. See you guys.